Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rangers Journal pre-match thoughts for our 3 o'clock kickoff against Dundee. With me today is Redian, the man behind Albanian Football Handle on Twitter. How you doing, mate?
How are you doing, man? I'm doing very good, and I'm very happy to be here to speak about a game which I think is going to be very great.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I guess the first thing to cover, mate. I don't know how much you see about the weather forecasts over there. It looks like it's going to be a pretty horrific game. I've got weather warnings over Glasgow, so might impact the game a little bit. We sometimes see, when it gets that breezy, it becomes a bit more of a slugfest, if you will, than sort of true skill and determination. But yeah, we'll see what it brings. So looking ahead, Dundee doing okay, not great. Rangers obviously come into this one off the back of probably a good run of form. Maybe the last two results they'll be a little bit disappointed about. Obviously, that game against Spurs in the Europa League, we would have expected to win, and judged on how we performed on the day. And I think there's probably enough been written about the cup final last week and the decision in that one. So I think one of the things that really interested me in the sort of pre-match stuff from the club was your man, in fact, Bayrami, was up doing the interview, and he actually spoke about that and the needs. They'd had a meeting, they'd discussed the no penalty award, but basically it was done now and we need to move on. And I think that is a really, really vital point for me. So Has Bayrami ever kind of had anything like this before, where he's been on the end what might be perceived as an injustice and just kind of had to get on with it and show his ability?
Oh, it's a tough question because first of all, he's never played at club level, at least in a game of that stature. Rangers Celtic is a big game all across the world. I would say it's at least top three biggest derbies to exist. So no, I wouldn't say he's had that big of a game impacted by a referee decision, and I don't think he's actually had too much injustice go his way in terms of refereeing decisions. Like being Albanian, usually we don't really get decisions going our way, but the time Bayrami has played for us, we've actually been quite lucky. So I think it's the first time, but I think again he showed also his Swiss side, you could say his Swiss professionalism, where they just think, okay, we got an injustice, but let's just keep going because there's no point in crying about it, no point in looking back. Let's just move forward. Rangers played a very good game. Everything taken into consideration, build on that instead of thinking too much about decisions.
And that's kind of what I was getting at. I think form has kind of deviated from results a little bit here. We drew that game in essence. We drew the Spurs game. Both of them were very good performances. And as you said, we should be looking to build on those. It could, hopefully, touch wood as I say this, mean that Dundee are in for a bit of a tough day today. Certainly hope so. Looking at the team that's going to face them then, and I always think it's quite funny in these because, like, the 0 point, speaking about goalkeeper. So I think Jack Butland will start there. But then defence, I think there's going to have to be, well, it's certainly not going to be our first choice groupings because John Suter is out. What about right back, Redian? Do you think this is a Tavernier game or a Sterling game?
To be honest, I've been quite impressed with Tavernier's how he's managed to turn things around because I think he started the season very badly.
Mm-hmm.
I think in recent weeks he's actually stepped up and been quite good. I would, however, go for Sterling because I just see more perspective in him, and I just think it's better to give him as many minutes as possible because for me, Tavernier, he's a bit of a closed chapter at the club. So I think you need to give minutes to a guy who can stay here for many years and perform for many years. And I just think today, not too much on the line. Why not play with Sterling?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And the manager has touched on it before how, Tavernier, no matter how well he's playing at the time, they are going to have to manage his minutes through the season a bit more than they've done in the past. So, yep, makes sense. And it certainly wouldn't be opposed to seeing Sterling in there. Moving into the middle of the park, then, it's pretty damn likely that we're going to see Leon Balogun and Robin Proper. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Robin Proper over the last couple of games, because he was another one that had a wee bit of a shaky start. I think a lot of people kind of made their minds up very quickly, but I think he's kind of settled a bit for me in the last few games. What's your thoughts on that, Radu?
Yeah, I agree. I think most of his problems have actually been, in the Scottish League, which is a bit of a theme with the Rangers squad in general, I think. But yeah, I saw him live against Malmo that time, and he played very well. So that was like my first impression of him. And then he all of a sudden started having too many bad performances, getting beat physically sometimes where he shouldn't be getting beat. But yeah, the last couple of games, I think he stepped up and shown why he was actually signed to begin with for quite a hefty fee, you could say. So yeah, I think it'll be good to see him start again.
Yeah, agreed. And I think this is a good chance for him to try and stake a claim to one of those starting jerseys now. He needs to make the most of Suter being out. Obviously, as fans, it's quite gutting that Suter's out, but as a player, that's got to be an opportunity. Just looking at left back then, Jeff Day, again, was almost the opposite of Proper. He kind of started really well and kept going. Probably didn't have the best of games in that Old Firm and was replaced by Ridvan. Who do you think will start there?
This one might be the toughest one for me, to be honest. Jeff Day is a guy who I've spoken quite well about the whole season. But as you also say, his game against Celtic for me was catastrophic. It really was. I just couldn't see one good thing from him that game, be it attacking or defensive. He was getting beat by his opposition all the time, and even when he had the ball, he was looking so shaky with it. Like he was running, but he wasn't really controlling it. He was just, I just couldn't see what went through him that day. But then you sub on a guy like Yilmaz, who I don't think is a bad player at all, but he didn't exactly have a good game either. He was quite bad on one of the goals. He also missed the penalty. Yeah, I get it. He's not going to shoot a penalty today, but it does something to him mentally. So I think only what's his name? Philip Clement knows who's in the best state of mind to start this game. But to be honest, I can see points for either of them starting. To me, I don't have a preference per se.
Yeah, fair enough. I have to admit, I do quite like Ridvan as a player. I think when he gets that run of games, you do see some genuine quality. But I would also totally agree he didn't exactly have a shining performance in that Old Firm either. Moving into the middle then. So actually, the pod I was on Wednesday, we kind of talked about Nico Raskin. If you haven't seen that already, that's on the Journal YouTube page to have a look at, see what you think. But Nico Raskin has pretty much kind of nailed himself on as the first choice in the middle of the park. And it's pretty much between Diomande and Barron who will partner him. So have you any thoughts or kind of any interest in either one? Anyone that you think would be better than the other to see here?
I like creating some sort of continuity with the lineups. So my choice will 100% be Raskin and Diomande again. The only thing is, you could maybe say Raskin needs a rest, but they've also had a week of rest since the last game. So I like Barron also, but I just think these two have performed so well together. I just don't see why you should change it. I think Barron has to fight for his spot once again.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Nobody should be considered a guaranteed starter, which kind of goes against what I've just said about Raskin, but I think he's earned that with his performance at the minute. Not to say that, that's forevermore. He needs to keep earning it. And as you say, there will come a time where he's going to be a bit too tired and will need a rest, but hopefully not today. Looking a bit further forward then, mate. So I think on the right wing, probably going to be Czerny. As you said, they've had a week's break, and unless he's one of the ones impacted with this kind of flu bug that's apparently been in the rounds, I think Czerny will start on the right. We spoke about this in the kind of lobby before we came live, but good opportunity for Bayrami to start in the 10, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the last two games are the first couple of games where he's finally started in the 10. And I'm not saying it's only because of that, but you could see it in the way Rangers played, both against Tottenham and against Celtic, where there was just so much more control and so many more better opportunities created when you have a guy like him in the 10. So I can't see any reason why he shouldn't start there again. I like Hadji as a player also, and I know he plays as a 10. I just think the team works so much better when Bayrami finally plays that 10 position, which I've been crying out about for so many months now, because it just does something to a team to have a guy like that pulling on the strings. And also, I think Hadji has been quite good at the left wing. He's doing the hard miles. He's just running around doing what he needs to do, and also pops in with a good pass or assist or something like that at times. So yeah, for me, of course, I would say this, but he has to start in the 10, Barami.
And just on that, obviously there's a bit of competition up top now. I'd say really for kind of three places, you've pretty much got four players competing. And I would say that's Bayrami, Hadji, Danilo, and Igman. Do you think that potentially Bayrami will drop and Hadji starts in the 10? Would you be, I mean, putting your allegiances aside for a second, would you be opposed to that?
I would say if he wants to start Hadji at the 10, then maybe it makes sense to go with the team that also beat Kilmarnock and Ross County by very good scorelines because they were playing well. Danilo and Igamane forming a good duo, Hadji doing some good stuff in the midfield also. So you could easily do that, and it will work. I think it will work today also. But I just see once again a bit like Sterling. I see Barami as a guy who has a big future at this club. So I think it's important to kind of also get him in the good tactics of this fluent front four, which I think is very important when you play against these low blocks teams. So I could definitely see Hadji start at the 10 and it will work. I just think it's important to incorporate Barami in it as well because we've seen it in big games, but we also need to see it in the smaller games per se because there are many more of those than the big ones.
That's it. And I think it's what we refer to up here as your bread and butter games. These are the ones that you just take for granted. But, as you say, there's more of them than anything else. So these need just as an intense performance. So, assuming that Bayrami does start at 10, like you've suggested, who takes the last two positions for you then, Reddy? And so you've got left wing and you've got striker. And I guess if you take Bayrami out because he's at 10, you've got three players vying for those positions.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna sound a bit boring because we basically just basically haven't changed anything on the team. But I would go with the same team that played against Celtic. So Hadji at left wing and Igamane at striker. I just think it's such a good fluid front four. Hadji and Bayrami can interchange. Igamane is also very mobile, so is Cherney. So you've got four players who can just switch positions, move around, find spaces, and it creates a lot of problems for the opposition.
It does, and it kind of shifts that low block that you're talking about a bit, doesn't it? Makes them potentially drop out of shape trying to cover kind of runners that are moving all over the pitch. Just on Danilo then, so you're sort of suggesting he would start on the bench in your team. Do you think there's an argument that we miss his kind of pressing and his interplay with Igman if we don't start him?
Yeah, it's definitely a good point, and I actually quite like Danilo. We also saw it in the final. Came on, scored after 2 minutes, and it's not a coincidence because he's a very active player. He's a player who creates a lot of volume whenever he's on the pitch. I never see him just standing around looking. So he's a good striker. I like his presence. I like the way he's more of a typical number 9, in my opinion, than Igamane, for example. The only thing about this, I think it's so hard to take Igamane out because he's been in red hot form.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I think he's the guy with the most quality at the whole club. So I just think it's very tough to put him on the bench.
It is, and I think it's no surprise that we're seeing some interest from down south. Apparently, in Igaman, rumors of bids coming in Christmas. I think For me personally, I wouldn't sell him at Christmas because I think if we keep him and develop him, you could probably double your money come the summer, assuming that he keeps going on the trajectory he is. But again, that will be the money makers at the club will have the ultimate say on that. I suppose I best ask just for Mitch in the old group chat, but I assume there's not a world where you would start serial testers in this one.
No. Look, I'm not I'm not a fan of him. Let's just put it like that. I definitely see what he can bring to the table at times, and I think he's actually quite good when you sub him on for 10 minutes because he always somehow manages to get into a position to score. My problem is he doesn't score. He's way too inconsistent in front of goal, and then his 10-minute cameos also become a bit pointless. But I think playing him from the start, it just is hugely detrimental to the team. And I simply wouldn't play him at all. I think he's third choice for striker.
Yeah, agreed. I think we actually, when we signed him, we heard from De Boer. He used to play for Rangers, and he basically said he's either a 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10, and there's no in between. He'll have one of those amazing games where he'll kind of make the chances himself and he does score them, or, like we've seen recently, he'll have an open goal and stick it wide, and there's just no in the middle. There's no kind of average game with him, which you do get with a lot of players. So with that in mind then, Reddy, and you seem quite settled on your team and you seem quite keen on building that continuity. Just sort of take us through for a second. So if, we start the team like you say, which personally I'm in favour of as well. I think, you don't change something that's working, and in the main that has worked. What would your kind of subs look like? Who are you looking to bring on? Who are you looking to rest? Who gets those kind of development minutes? Is it potentially a chance for a youngster if the game's in a good place? What's your thoughts on that side of it?
Yeah, I think like subs are a big part of football, and I think it's very very nice that Rangers finally have options off the bench, because it's also been a problem throughout the season. I would 100% put on Danilo at some point because he deserves minutes. Of course he does, and he will probably score in those minutes, and then maybe we can speak about him starting some more games. Baron also just clean up things and keep possession if you're leading, like in the 60th, 70th minute. I think he's very good at doing that. And then also a guy like Cortez, because I heard he was in the matchday squad for today. Yes. Why not just give him 10 to 15 minutes just to get him going again?
Yeah, he did get a run out in the Glasgow Cup, which is basically a youth game. But they gave him the first half of that, him and Rabi Matondo, in fact. Interestingly, because both of them kind of compete for the same position, but yeah, they both got the first half of that game. So I think he's had some minutes, and I think you're right, it's a really good opportunity just to get him kind of 20, 30 minutes of competitive action at a higher level. I guess a lot of it will depend kind of where the game's at that point. If it's done, if we're winning 3-4-0, then absolutely makes sense. If it's tight, it might be a case that he holds back, because that's actually one of the things that we saw with Danilo at the start of the season. We were all kind of crying for him to get minutes, but because the games were so tight and sticky all the time, he just kept Dessers on and didn't give Danilo the minutes. So I think it's up in the air whether we'll see Cortez, but personally I'd really like to. That's a player that we've only kind of seen little sparks, but he's not had enough time because of injuries to truly show us what he can bring to the team. If you had to make a choice between him and Matondo to come on in this one, which would it be?
To be honest, I haven't watched any minutes of either. I haven't had the chance to be honest. What I've heard is that Cortez is a better player there, so probably him. And also because I heard he's more match fit as per se. So yeah, I would probably go for him. But I'm with either. I just think it's important to get like a natural left winger in there. Yeah. And if they both are that, then if one of them can do something, then it will be good.
Yeah, I think for me personally, and again, it's all about opinions, isn't it? But for me, Matondo is very reminiscent of Dessers in that sense. He has the moments that are sublime. He had 2 games in the trot where he came on and scored from like the left hand corner of the box, just outside of that, and he scored curlers in the top right corner. And I mean, that was brilliant. It was great goals, but there's an awful lot in the middle that's just him kind of running balls out at the side and stuff. So he's a bit like that. I think Cortez, we all kind of want him to be that left winger that we need. I've seen flashes. I don't think we can really say we've seen enough yet to say he is, just purely again because he hasn't had the minutes so far. But I guess picking up on what you've said earlier, so Matondo's on a fairly hefty wage, and probably, if I'm being honest, I would imagine the club will be looking at shift him on. Cortez is on a lower wage, but he is loan this season, but we've got an obligation to buy at the end of the season. So again, back to what you were saying about who's potentially going to be here for the future, who's going to be around in a year's time. For me personally, I'd rather see Cortez get that time. But again, we'll see what Clement wants to do. It's a bit of a joke sometimes with some of his team changes. You never quite guess what he's thinking. I guess just finally then, Reddy, and I don't know how much you've seen of Dundee to make this prediction, but what's your kind of result score prediction?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I've only seen them for one game, which was the League Cup quarterfinal, I believe, which was also actually Baramis' full debut and his Ibrox debut. So that's a bit of an interesting fact. It was a very easy game, I think, for Rangers back then. 3-0, even at a time where the play wasn't that great. So I'm not going to be way too optimistic, but I would imagine something like 3-0 once again today. With all the players in form, the team playing well. Dundee, yeah, I know they can also trouble some teams because they've scored quite a lot of goals. But I just think Rangers are in such a good moment, and it's the 125th anniversary of Ibrox. I think it's going to be a good game today. And yeah, it will be good to beat them because I'm pretty sure they're going to play again on the 9th of January in Dundee. So it's good to tell them, okay, we're here. Let's see what we can do again.
Absolutely. Just on that, I take it you've not heard of the Cursor Rangers and their special kits. We don't have the best of records when we wear these special kits, and of course today we're wearing a 125th anniversary kit. So yeah, another dimension there. I'm going to be positive for you. You're such a positive guy; it's making me positive. So I'm also going to go for a 3-0 Rangers win. Nice, easy, back to winning ways.
That's perfect. And I would like to say, I think also, yeah, that's the Albanian guy going again, but I think Bayram is going to score his first Ibrox goal today because he hasn't actually scored at Ibrox yet. Yep. So that's another prediction.
Here's hoping, mate. Okay, well, thanks very much for tuning in, everyone. If you did like what you heard, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the game, but for now, every night's a Rangers Journal night.